Welcome to scene one of this MovieStream analytics workshop. In these first couple of labs, what we'll be doing is creating and loading a brand new autonomous database instance. So in your workshop guide, we'll deploy and explore a little bit the autonomous database. Then we'll link it to our data lake, which has all of the data for our workshop, and we'll start loading that data into the database from the data lake. So the autonomous database, in addition to all of its well-established functionality, the fact that it can patch itself, upgrade itself, it can easily be backed up and restored and cloned, it's elastic and scalable and all of those good things. We're building a lot of additional built-in functionality so that the database can act as the central pillar to your cloud data platform. It can easily integrate with data lakes, and we can pull in and work with the data right directly into the autonomous database without moving it elsewhere, so that we can do powerful machine learning, graph analytics, and all sorts of other things, spatial analytics. And this workshop takes you through some of those things as a kind of opening tour. So in this first part of the workshop, we'll create a brand new autonomous database. We can do that in just a few clicks. You can observe as you go through the provisioning process how easy it is to pick the initial number of OCPUs, to pick the options to auto scale that, to pick the amount of storage, and all of that can be done in just a few clicks of the mouse. Then when we have the database instance created, we'll create a new user for the purposes of the workshop. Again, we'll just use our browser to do that. We'll tick on a few of the options we need, graph, web access, and OML for that user, and we'll make sure the user has enough table space. That's all we need to do. Then once the user's created, we can start loading data in from cloud storage. Now, in this case, the workshop uses data that's on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Object Storage, but the data lake could just as easily be on Amazon S3, on Azure, or on Google Cloud Platform, or even any combination of those. And it wouldn't matter, we'd still be able to load the data into the database or even link to the data in those external data lakes, just using the simple built-in tooling directly available in the UI. And then the final step of the workshop is just to very quickly load in the rest of the files through SQL. It uses exactly the same underlying DBMS Cloud APIs to load the data in from cloud locations. Okay, so the very first step of the workshop is just to create an autonomous database. We're going to call it MovieStream. You can give it a name that you choose. The name is not important for the workshop, but just make sure it's something memorable. We can choose the data warehouse workload type and on shared infrastructure. You can tick on the always free option if you want to. That is sufficient for the workshop, but normally we'll just leave these options as they are. The default 1 OCPU will be sufficient. If you want to create more, you can. And make sure you just type in a password that you can remember for the rest of the workshop. Once you've done that, click on the license included option and the create button. After a couple of minutes, you'll see the database is now available to use, and you can access all the menus to see the kind of ease with which you can do potentially previously difficult operations like cloning the database, managing the encryption key, moving it, and things like this. But for the rest of the workshop, we're going to focus on the tools that are built into the database. So we'll go into the Tools tab, and we're going to click on Database Actions. And from there, we're going to start the process of creating a new user for the rest of the workshop. And we'll also use the Database Actions page for a number of the other items as we go through the labs one at a time. So the first thing you need to do is log in as that admin user that you created when you first set up the database. And click on Database Users under Administration to create the new user. Click on the Create User button. Now here we just need to specify the MovieStream user, give it a password that you'll remember. And now we just need to click on a few options. So we need to click on Graph, Web Access, and OML, and Unlimited, and then we'll create the user. Now the user's been created, we just have one more thing to do as the admin user. Just go into SQL and paste in from the workshop guide those additional SQL statements that just grant that user a few more privileges in the database. Once that's done, we can log out as admin and sign in as our MovieStream user. And this is the user that you'll use for the rest of the workshop. Now straight back onto our database actions page, and we can start loading data into the database from object storage. Now to set up that link to our data lake, we need to click on Cloud Locations. Then click on the Add Cloud Storage button, and we're going to call this MovieStream Gold, because that's the name of our gold area in our data lake that contains our curated data sets. Now, this is a public bucket, so we don't need credentials. We can just paste in the URI. Let's just test that. That's fine. And we can create that link. That's all there is to it. Now, once we've got that link to our data lake set up, we can go back to data load and we can see the options available to us. We could load data in from that cloud storage. We can link to data from it, or we can feed data in continuously based on changes in the data that we're notified about. For the purposes of this workshop, we're going to load data from cloud storage. You'll notice that we could also load data like Excel files or CSV files from our local machine here, or from another database that we have a link to. In this case, we're going to select load data from cloud storage. And now you can see we can browse the contents of our cloud data lake. Now for the workshop, all we need to do is drag over a couple of the folders from that data lake into the right-hand pane here. Now you'll notice that you get a dialog box. Do we want to load all the one objects in the customer contact folder? So, okay, in this case, we've only got one file in that folder. But you can imagine in big data scenarios, we often have lots of different files that are coming in representing the same data and in the same structure. So very often we'll want to load those into a single table. So that's what we can do by dragging that folder across rather than the individual file. We get that option and we can just press OK. That will bring up a load task for our customer contact folder. Let's do the same for genre, add that in. And we want to click the OK button again. Now let's have a look at the settings for one of these tasks. Click on the pencil icon. You can see that the hard work is really done for you. So these CSV files have been understood by the load tool, and it understands the data types and so forth, and it's going to create columns automatically for us based on the headings. So we can click on the close button, and if we're happy with the mappings for both these files, which should be correct for the lab, we can just click Start to run the data load job. And about 20 seconds later, you'll see the green tick icons on both of those tasks. That means those tables have been created and loaded with that data from object storage. Nice and simple. So the last stage of the lab is just to go into SQL and to paste in a script that comes with the lab, which will load the rest of the data for the workshop. And this is just done to really just make things very, very quick for the purposes of spending the time doing the fun stuff, analyzing the data. So we have a script here. All we just do is click on the Run Script button, and that will load all of the rest of the data for the workshop. Once the script is finished, just click on the refresh button to see all the tables that have been created. And you should have a list of tables that looks a little bit like this with cust sales and genre and movie and so on. And that completes the first couple of labs of the workshop. The next stages will go on to analyze the data and to perform a number of different other operations that are available in the autonomous database. Thank you.